Let's go back to that Michigan game, because I've had people say it to me. I've seen it online, and they talk about how with Ohio State winning this game and Notre Dame being in this game, with these being the two teams playing for the championship, that it's kind of devalued the regular season. Like, oh, losing to Northern Illinois didn't mean anything. Losing to Michigan didn't mean anything, and that there won't be as much interest in in the Ohio State Michigan game. I have a friend that texts me all the time about that. Like, it's not going to be like that. But I think if you ask Ohio State fans and Michigan fans, there will never be any lack of interest in that game. Now, maybe to the non Ohio State Michigan fans, might that maybe not have as much interest as there has always been in the past. But I think this college football season was so special in the fact that none of us knew really what to expect. But you got to see these other teams, whether it be Arizona State or Boise State or SMU, all at least have a chance.
Yeah.
Like, to do it on the field, and which you would have never seen in the old format. So I'm just curious, what your take is on the format now. Now that you can have that 2020, that vision, hindsight, does it devalue the regular season for you at all?
I don't think so. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but I'll challenge that. Like, it adjusts 100 years of how we viewed the regular season. You would view, let's just take the easy one, Ohio State, Michigan, loser, you're going to a bowl game, but you're out. You're not going to the championship game. You're not playing the playoff. Season's over. Like, yeah, that was a reality. I think there's something cool to that. Like, for sure. I love that stakes in that. Or if you lose early in the season, I love that, it just kind of whittles it down. I think what this new format has done is given teams more life. Like, it's given a team who's 4-1, they're staring adversity in the face, or 1-1 like Notre Dame, and saying, all right, guys, it's win or go home now, right? Or Indiana, or you name the school. Like, I think it gives more people, and look no further than Arizona State, Boise State, SMU, and Indiana as the teams that, they found a way in to the playoff. I put Clemson in that too, that normally wouldn't have, with multiple losses on the season, Clemson being that example. And now they get that. Now, do I have issues with the seeding? Yeah, I think that's a fair conversation. I don't know what's going to change in 1 year, if it's going to expand to 14 a year after that. I think it's a fair conversation. Like, Oregon shouldn't have had the most challenging of paths after being undefeated. That's fair. And I do think the committee needs to get out of the dialogue of, we just do what we were asked to do. We don't look at the potential matchups. Like, I think that's not reality. I think it's your job to do that. I think the calendar needs to change. I talked to a coach last night who referenced, there's an idea coming out of the South that was like, move the season up, take a bye away, and you're playing the game January 6th for this championship, or January 7th or something like that. I think those things are the nuanced part of it. But I don't think there's a coach in the country that's going to say, yeah, the regular season doesn't matter anymore. I think they're going to say, good, we get to know our team a little bit more. Because the flip side of that, if you is saying, well, give us then preseason games. Let us get to know our team a little bit more. And we're never going to do that. That's never going to happen in college football. There's zero chance. I mean, we're lucky, and I say this as a guy who loves spring football as much as anyone. We're lucky that spring games are still getting televised. I mean it. And not the premier schools is one thing. It's the secondary schools. It's teams 30 through 60. Because I know this for a fact, folks. Group of 5 schools I've talked to that are like, I don't want our spring practices even open to anybody because our DB is better than the Power 4 school I just came from. I talked to a coach in the Mountain West who coached in, I'll just say because it's easy to skirt it, coached in the old version of the Pac-12. So you can guess which team it was. And they were like, our secondary is better than where I came from, and I don't want anybody to know. So, yeah, I don't think it's devalued, to answer your question. I think it's just adjusted. The lens in which we have to view the season is adjusted. Just like in the NFL. The games are still incredibly exciting. And I called a bunch of those second tier games. Like when I'm calling like Indiana, Washington, dude, Washington's out of it, but it's still an awesome game when Indiana's in it, right? Or a couple one-loss teams, and I called SC Minnesota. They both had 2 losses. I think Minnesota might have 3 at the time. It was an awesome game. So I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah, no, I would agree with it. And I think like just on a personal level for me, as far as like interest, you know, those last 2 weeks of the regular season, I paid attention to more Big 12, ACC, Mountain West, mid tier SEC, Big Ten games than I ever would have in the past. Now, granted, that's partly partly because of the old job where we were so dialed into the 12 teams that were in the Pac-12, it was almost like the other schools didn't even exist uh, in that world. But I mean, I found it so, I think about that, that UNLV Boise game. Like I was fired up to watch that game, and it was a fun game. In the past, I probably would have been, I got work to do. I got to pay attention to other stuff. But like I think this broadens this horizon. This gives more schools hope. Now, do I think is there a chance that any of these other schools that didn't make it, whether it's my school like Arizona, or you look at like Syracuse or Cal, or whoever, like are those schools really going to be able to compete with the Ohio States of the world with the way that college football sits right now? I don't know, but at least when you look at a team like Arizona State, they were at least able to have that opportunity on the field and really had the opportunity to beat Texas.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. Like every time I hear somebody say like college football's never been healthier, and I get it. Like everybody said, college football is going to fall apart with the portal and then with the NIL, and it hasn't. It's flourishing, but we have to also like be realistic and think of the teams that just live out west where we live. They're all not saying that, right? There's Power Four teams and huge programs that are like cutting staff's jobs to they make sure they add that money to their NIL pool. Like, so to think that everybody is Ohio State would be ignorant. And to think that like the mid-level teams in major college football are playing at the same level financially as everybody else at the premium level in college football is just, you're just not seeing it. Like you're just not talking to enough people. Like that's just not how it works. Now, those schools, and we've said it many times, Cal, you reference Cal, like how many times have I said it on this show? Like if you throw down there at Cal, you got a real shot. I mean, look at the players you produced 20 years ago, 10 years ago, in recent years. Like you can have a lot of talent, and look at where they sit now, getting one of the top quarterbacks in America coming in. They just got a big portal addition coming from Ohio State, a one-time USC commit. How about, did you remember that, coming out of the state of Utah, rocking number 33, and now he's playing for the Cal Bears. So that'll be kind of cool.